Brazil. You know, Brazil is a country that's booming. You know, go somewhere where things are booming. But to sit around the U.S. for 5 years and listen to everyone complain about how bad things are, it's not a good way to spend your 20s.
Okay, David, or Matt, I hope that answers. My call list is changing. I think that was, who was I just talking to?
Oh,
Matt,
by the way, Alex, I wanted to thank your listeners, by the way.
Oh. Yeah, when are you going to make the pirate the film thing that you advertised, Alex in the rabbit hole?
The film that we made in Greece, we raised the entire $4,500 budget from people who listen to our shows through, you know, giving us $5 and $10 a piece on my site, Pirate My Film. And we've already financed half of the next film that we're going to shoot in Spain. So this is called crowdfunding. So the crowd each kicks in a few bucks, and then we go make the film. And then when we release it onto YouTube, it's completely without any copyright whatsoever. It's copyright-free media. So we release it freely into the media. Anyone can download it. We want people to download it. This is pure copyright-free media that's crowd-funded on Pirate My Film. And we do the films about all these hotspots and all these economic front
Very,
lines.
very exciting, Max. Look forward to talking to you again soon. All right, David, Sean, George, JB, and others. We'll get to you with Bob Chapman.
Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
They have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?
Today seems like nobody does care. And right now in Washington, D.C., we have seen a fall of the Republic.
Get your copy of Fall of the Republic on DVD at Infowars.com or watch it online right now in super high quality at prisonplanet.tv.
The folks at eFoods Direct have saved you from the huge price increases on food by buying raw materials ahead and packing your supplies themselves. They haven't increased their prices on great long-term food reserves since last year. With the rising cost of raw materials and gas prices, they can't hold off any longer. As of July 1st, eFoods Direct is forced to increase their prices so they can still ship you the best storable food on the planet. Until the end of June, you can lock in the cost of your food at last year's prices by calling 800-409-5633. Your time is running out to build your supply with the best food on the planet at last year's prices with eFoods Direct. Call 800-409-5633. Prices go up at the end of June. Go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Call 800-409-5633 or go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
Hi, folks. This is Alex Jones. I'm looking for people that have the wisdom to spot savings, opportunity, and recognize risk. Saving means to make money. The Cal Ben Pure Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated and twice as good as what you're using now. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils that contain no useless dyes, perfumes, deodorants, or antibacterials. Your risk is the hundreds of hazardous toxic detergents that give you rashes, itching sores, and deteriorating clothing called lint. If you want something better, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. Getting a free catalog is easy by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Take charge of your health now by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com.
He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Well, the globalist Hydra is sucking grease down into the water to shear the population. CBC television is admitting that last year at the G20, G8 summit in Toronto, police did pose as demonstrators to engage basically in criminal activity so they could then attack the general demonstrators and have $1 billion in police funding and security funding. They were caught a few years before that in Montebello and then bordering the capital city there of Ottawa. And they noticed that all the anarchists had police boots. And they would have the anarchists attack cops. People noticed those anarchists are all wearing the same boots. It turned out it was the police-issued boot with a little yellow logo on the heel. It was all staged. And the people ran up and said, "You're cops, you're cops." And so the police suddenly ran to the anarchists and got them behind the police line, and people videotaped them. And the CNP had to admit they do that. I mean, folks, if you try to build a veteran whose house they bulldoze a new home, they'll send cops in trying to get you to blow stuff up. I mean, they don't want citizens doing jack squat because the government is a mafia. Before I get into the economy, your phone calls, the huge news, absolutely huge developments. Congress, just about an hour ago, the House voted no on continuing Obama's war in Libya. We've also got top Democratic representative, a president is an absolute monarch. And just a lot of really exciting things are happening as people admit the level of tyranny we're facing. But I wanted to talk to Bob Chapman, formerly with military intelligence, and then had the biggest private silver and gold brokerage firm, and put out the Gary Allen report and the book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. He's been fighting for close to 50 years against the global crime syndicate, and unfortunately, stuff he talked about 40 years ago has come true now. I wanted to talk about cases of people like Whitey Bulger, now supposedly caught. He's really been in a quasi-witness protection program. This horrible murdering gangster who, of course, we later learned worked for the FBI, was protected by them. That's how they control organized crime, is by first telling us it didn't exist back in the 50s, and then once the public wised up to that, selectively busting certain groups. It's why they made alcohol illegal, was to make more profits in Prohibition. It's why they made narcotics illegal. Criminals want things illegal, so there's a black market. And now how many CIA aircraft have crashed? How many mega banks have been caught with hundreds of billions in laundered money and running the drug aircraft? And I remember Sally Costello, DEA agent, almost 6 years ago on this show, saying that Los Zetas is CIA funded. They tried to hire me to train them. There's going to be a new war in Mexico as they shut down their competition over the $500 billion a year in narcotics coming through Mexico alone. Into the rest of North America, Canada, the U.S., and other points it's delivered through. And then he said a couple years ago, before they set him up and put him in prison, that they're shipping guns to Mexico to destabilize things. And he knew because he was a gun dealer. And they tried to recruit him to train Los Zetas, as he'd done in Latin America, training other groups, and he went to prison. Well, now it all comes out in the last few months. Operation Fast and Furious. The ATF's been caught lying to Congress. The head of the ATF saying they didn't know. It turns out they had cameras shipping them. They ordered the whole thing just as ATF officers that went public a few months ago, risking their lives. I'm here to tell you, the ATF is a real mafia, the most criminal federal agency I know of. That's in a group of CIA and FBI people. But again, it's all compartmentalized. The good guys, they compartmentalize and kind of low-level work. The bad guys get promoted to the top. And this came out with Whitey Bulger, that he was paying 25% of the hundreds of millions he made running the Irish mob on the East Coast to the FBI. And even setting up people in his own organization for snacks. That's what the FBI calls it. When they wanted bigger cuts, they burned their own people, and Bulger would act like he didn't know what was happening to his Irish brotherhood. And it's the same thing with the Italian mafia, all these mafias. So I wanted to get Bob Chapman's take on that, because when you've got Investors Business Daily, this is very exciting. I talked about this in the first hour. Headline was Fast and Furious, a gun control plot. Well, we have the answer to that, a detailed report going back to our previous reports today. Obama administration caught running false flag against Second Amendment. So this is super, super important news. And this link, the 8-page article by Watson, needs to get out to everybody, because the ATF was going to get abolished in '93, so they pulled off that whole Waco thing that, oh, look, we have extremists we got to deal with. And then there was footage of them loading their cameras saying, oh, we've got to demonize, these people to get more funding. Ha, 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 this is going to be great. pulled up, opened fire, had the whole thing planned from the beginning. The Davidians fought back. When the ATF put their hands up, the Davidians stopped. If they shot a bunch of men, women, and children. Not saying the Davidians were perfect. They were a little weird. Most of it was made up. And the ATFs ran off like cowards and went and got the military and others and came back and burned the place down. And they had Delta Force there shooting everybody. And that even came out in congressional hearings. Delta Force, quote, pulling triggers. I don't need that report to tell me that. I've got the FLIR footage of them behind the Bradleys in classic infantry fashion with the loudspeakers saying, come out during the fire. And when the Davidians ran out, some of them with kids, they double-tapped them and then would run over them with tanks. Nothing like running over that baby a couple times. It's an American enemy. And then they had the rest of the kids hiding out in a little concrete church records vault. Delta Force went in, put that bomb right on the roof, shot in there with that shape charge, splattered them into soup, and it was just posing with skulls. Delta Force and the Army, the tank drivers, they had the skulls and took photos. The ATF had skulls on their desk. Nothing like bagging an American. Nothing like killing a 1-year-old baby. Ooh-rah. And then folks got upset about that, what these real men did. So the ATF was even admitted on Discovery Channel. They said it was a coincidence. Cooked a Ryder truck with fuel oil 6 months before and tested it out in the desert. And when local cops found out about that in Oklahoma City, well, they had to be killed, of course. We got Colonel Craig Roberts coming on to talk about that next week. But I'm sorry, Bob. I'm now digressing. I was just getting into how organized crime really works and who really runs it. At the end of the day, you find out Wall Street gets almost all the money. And then they even own the private prisons that when they catch you using their drugs at the retail level, they put you in the prison working for 25 cents an hour, competing with everybody else's jobs. And the good old boys, they all love it, even though they're losing their jobs, Bob Chapman. Is that an accurate boil down of what we're dealing with here?
It certainly is. And I came from Boston, and I knew Whitey Bulger when I was a teenager.
That's why I raised it. You told me that about a decade ago. Please continue.
And he belonged to a group they called the Winter Hill Gang. And my mom and dad grew up in Winter Hill. And it just so happens when they were growing up, there was another fellow who lived across the street from my mom, and his name was Ponzi. And he eventually moved to New Jersey. It was quite a colorful section. It was very poor Italian, Irish, Greek, the melting pot, so to speak.
Now, I didn't know that the famous Ponzi scheme guy grew up in your neighborhood.
It was in there.
Yeah, he was before you, yeah.
Yeah, and but anyway, I knew Whitey. He was just another criminal, and there were lots of kids like that. And he went to prison, and he got trained well there, and he became a real pro. The program that they set up with the FBI, Conley, who's now in prison, the FBI agent, who I guess what you would call him his handler, they finally caught him in the crossfire, we'll call it. But the whole thing was an FBI operation, and this used to happen all the time.
Oh, yeah, they only busted it when the state police got sick of him killing cops, so they went ahead and busted him, and so then they spirited him off, let him go into a secret witness protection program. Why do you think they're busting him now? They knew where he was all along, Bob.
That's right, and I think the whole thing got long in the tooth. They looked like idiots because they couldn't find him. And, the easy excuse is he was with a woman, and they didn't change their pattern of life. And so they were easy to take down. I mean, if you hadn't know how to look for people, and there are people who know how to do that, and I do. I'm pretty good at it. The government taught me well.
Yeah, you're hiding out.
Well, I always am because, I get down to brass tacks, and I've been threatened by the government before, and I believe them.
That's right. We don't call you. You call us, and every time from a different number. We don't even. You're in a nice third world country right now, Bob. But Bob, now that's because all the stuff they tried to do to you have escaped their orbit for now. But I interrupted you. Let's get back to Whitey Bulger and the FBI operation and how they flushed just one of the mid-level guys. But it's admitted money going right up to the top. But again, we were told the Cosa Nostra doesn't exist.
Well, that's right. It didn't exist. My father's brother belonged to the Cosa Nostra. and he was the biggest bookmaker in Boston. Of course, it was illegal in those days, and now it's legal, and so it's okay. But I'm very, very familiar with both sides of the fence. And when I was 16, I decided, both sides of the fence being the Italian and the Irish, quite frankly, I'm half Irish and half Italian. And so I decided at 16 years old that I didn't want to get involved in that life. And I did very, very well in school, and